now it's counting up. So we're going to start. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. I'm always a Sustainiac. The other Sustainiac this week is, hey, my new friend. I've just been talking to him for about 5-10 minutes. He's super cool. He's Corey Woolard, and he's, I don't know, he does something over at this place called Peak Renewables, right? Is that the name of the company, Peak Renewables? Is that right?
That's it, bud. You got
All
it.
right. Cool. So, yeah, we're going to talk for a while. What are you doing over there at Peak Renewables, Corey?
So I got in this crazy world of wood pellets
Okay.
about 3.5-4 years ago, and I tell you, it's been quite the journey, Michael. Coming from chemicals, was it chemical manufacturing for 14, 15 years with Solvay, and then in plastics with Klockner Penoplast, and then I got in
But
this wood pellet business.
that's what attracted me to your. I stalk people on LinkedIn and go, hey, this is an interesting story, and I like the best ones are the ones. Hey, this guy was running around. This guy was the onceler. He tore down every truffula tree on the planet, and now he's planting them all. And now he's Johnny Appleseed running around. Right? It's kind of one of those type of things. People are like, what? He's a renewable guy, but he was making plastics, and he was doing all this other and chemicals and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, is this, are you penance or what, what you
Yeah.
felt bad? What was it? Tell me, what was the career like? Why the sudden change? Was it,
It's so funny, man. What a journey, right? I mean, life is about the journey.
Yeah, it certainly is. I agree.
And it's one of those things where every industry has its pundits and its naysayers, so to speak. And
Sure, they do.
I have no regrets. I learned so much with Solvay about big business, politics, company politics, and corporation. We make good products. I mean, still
Yeah.
making good products. Klockner made great products or makes great products, and there I just continued to progress my career and got to a global position where I got to travel to Germany and China and Thailand and run factories over there. So it was just such a neat growth experience for me professionally and personally, right?
That's amazing.
It was, and and then when you reach those executive type roles, so come the politics of, oh, there's a new CEO coming in, or there's a new upper level manager, and they're going to bring their team in, and so at that point in time, I transitioned on from Klockner, and I had an old mentor actually from Solvay that reached out to me and said, "Hey, Corey, I want you to come run operations for me um, in the U.S." And I was like, "Okay, cool. What chemicals?" Because that's the world
Yeah.
I knew him from, right?
Right.
And so he's like, "No, it's totally different, man. It's wood pellets." And I said, "Huh?" So Michael, honestly, I kind of fell into this. I mean, when he approached me with the idea, obviously it was the name of the company was Drax, and then I started doing a lot of research on understanding, okay, what is industrial wood pellets? What are they being used for? The
Yeah.
journey of wood pellets over the span of 15, 20 years, and what role Drax played in that. And so, long story short, I took the role, I took the job, and it was so funny. I'll never forget. I was doing my on-site interview, and I was walking through the pellet plant. Right,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay. Fiber wood comes in here. It goes through this machine, pretty easy. It goes through this machine, seems pretty easy. It's formed into this little pellet, and then you put them on a rail car and in a barge and ship them.
Yeah.
It's easy enough."
Piece of cake. Piece of cake.
Right?
Yeah.
Not like the world of chemicals where you're dealing with reactions and process safety and a bunch of other things that can blow up. But I tell you what, I got humbled really quick within my first couple of months because,
Really?
yeah, I mean, and that's what people don't understand. They're like,
Because it does seem that easy to me.
yeah, everybody thinks that. And it's
Yeah.
so funny, but it's,
I mean, once you figure out that they're not like carving little pellets out of a solid piece of wood, you
yeah,
figure, okay, you're not doing that. You're making fiber and then compressing it into a pellet and doing that. Okay, now that all right, I get it. Easy. Let's go. No, it's not that
no,
easy, I guess. Huh? No.
no. I
All right.
mean, and then you actually have to start thinking to it. You taking a biological system, right? A tree, the remnants of a tree,
Yeah.
okay, and you're applying it through a mechanical operation. So it's this type of a biomechanical type deal going on. You got a lot of wear and tear on the equipment. You've got a lot of process safety because you're dealing with organic dust, wood dust, right?
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't recognize until things go boom. And so the industry is like really progressing in that front. And then it's the nuances of, oh, it's the spring, so you might have a greener, wetter material. Oh, it's the fall, so it's drier, and it affects how the quality of the product is. And it's just really neat. It is a neat
So I
industry.
mean, so you're dealing with humidity, temperatures inside it, and all that other kind of. I mean, when you're trying to do like regrind plastics into pellets, right? You're co-pounding them into pellets and stuff like that. You've got humidity levels and all that are very, very important. And so that's the same thing in the wood pellets. That's what you're saying, right? And
Yeah,
it's so is that dust? Can that dust like can it just like ignite? Is it
yeah,
combustible?
absolutely. I mean, and that's why, think about it. You're putting, particle size particles, right, into a
Yeah.
machine that's compressing it. So, if you have a heat source that is hot enough, right, because
Mm,
you've not done your preventative maintenance or something's wrong with the piece of
yeah.
equipment, and it's just sitting there getting hotter and hotter and hotter, yeah, things can go
Friction.
sideways.
Just
Yep.
just a friction source can light that stuff up, right?
Yep.
Wow. So what are the pellets used for?
So the pellets we manufacture, peat renewables, is going overseas, as with most pellets here in the U.S. I mean, produced by all of your big boys, Enviva, Drax. Most of them are going overseas to Europe, Asia Pacific, where they've converted most of their coal fire power generation
Yeah.
into woody biomass.
Oh, okay. So it's just all right, I got you. So this not these are not these are industrial, and I just now I'm saying these are industrial. Not these aren't
Yeah.
going into wood pellet grills. Things that like a Traeger wood pellet grill, and I'm going to smoke my brisket on it.
No, you don't want to use these pellets for that. No, you won't get the flavor, man.
Not going to get the flavor. But I learned really quickly that you don't barbecue with pine.
No, exactly, exactly.
I've never tried that, folks. I'm really not that stupid.
Use a good
Yeah.
flavor, like I don't know, maple or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, hickory. Well, you're a Carolina boy, right?
That's right. Born and
So
raised in North Carolina,
yeah,
Eastern
so you
North
know how
Carolina.
to barbecue, right?
That's right.
I mean, you have to, don't you? I mean, it's like
It's
right before
It's a
walking.
rite of passage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be right. That's what it is. That's really interesting. So I mean, you fell into it, and that's cool. But okay, so tell me this: do you get into the I guess politics of and the idea of sustainability, right? I mean, it says peak renewables, right? And renewables is kind of a misconception to a lot of people, or people don't understand exactly what is going on with renewables, right? Because you see renewables and okay, they're renewable, but coal is technically renewable. It just takes a long time to renew it, right?
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is. It is. But I mean, we're talking about renewable in the sense that we're going to understand that it's renewable and see that it's renewable. You've got and that type of. So how is it renewable? What are the benefits of it over coal or fuel? Some other petro fuel, a fossil fuel plant, right? That is going to use some type of fossil fuel, whether coal or liquid.
Well, I think for me, Bud, it was yes, I fell into it, but I'm also at a point in my career where I really wanted to self-reflect and say, okay, if Corey, if you're getting into this industry, right? Like, what is its longevity?
Yeah,
Do you believe in the product? And so, Michael, I spent a lot of time before I made the decision to get in wood pellets, doing my homework, right? As you
right,
should before you take any job.
right.
and so I started just researching, looking at what the naysayers say about green energy and using trees and you know it, the science behind it, and then also the process behind it. It's not like, oh, pellet producers are just going out and cutting down whole round trees and turning them into pellets. That's truly not what's happening, right? Even though,
Yeah,
again, some pundits, some naysayers say that. A lot of NGOs are saying that, right, against the
sure.
pellet industry. um, when you actually get into how much timber exists in the southern U.S. and in the U.S. period, but specifically the southern U.S., and you realize you've got millions and millions of hectares, and you realize that you have, fast growing trees, southern yellow pine, that is a great raw material, is a material that can be timbered for what we know as, good timber, lumber, two by fours, and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
But there's a lot of residuals, and residuals being sawdust that these mills produce, like wood chips that these mills produce that they can't do
Yeah,
anything with, right? And so when you really take that material and use that to make a wood pellet, you're truly looking at a circular economy, like recycling, reusing all of your byproducts to
hmm
make another product that can be used.
yeah.
And
Because
it's
that sawdust. I mean, well, sawdust goes into a bunch of different products now, right? I mean, it can, anyways, right? And those chips, right? You're one of other products that it can be. But I'm totally following you. Where you're going with it. I mean, it totally makes sense because you put it into a landfill and it can it not like enhance the methane production in a landfill, which is like far worse than the carbon dioxide, right? I mean, it's shorter lived, but it's much worse as a like a greenhouse gas, I guess, a GHG type of thing, methane and stuff like that.
right, right. I mean, when you look at what are some of the off takes for sawdust, I mean, farmers use it for bedding, for sometimes for animals. You might use it to spread around. I mean, it could go into other applications and stuff, but
I
typically it
mix
is
it with
going.
wood glue. I mix it with wood glue to refill screw holes so that I can re-screw a wood. Have you ever done
There,
that? I mean,
yeah,
it's a perfect application for it. You can make a wood paste like glue out of it and refill a hole, and then you've got a whole board again, right?
yep,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
So then, kind of circling back to your question, well, um, what makes it, green? And you look at like the life cycle of a tree, and this
sure.
is kind of the thought process I went through, right? And it's like, all right, southern yellow pine grows pretty quickly. It's absorbing carbon, for photosynthesis and all of that good biological stuff that you learned in high school.
Yeah,
and and there's method to it, right? It's not just madness. There's method to it, and so for me, it was okay. I truly can get behind this. I see it. Being raised in Eastern North Carolina, there was a lot of yellow pine. I mean, my family even went from tobacco farming to converting our allotment of tobacco to, growing pine trees, right? So it kind of hit home with me on that level as well. Um, so, I believe it's sustainable, and I believe it can be used to offset the use of coal. Like everybody, I'm not one of those who believe that coal is just going to go away, right? I do believe there is a place for coal uh, in the future and throughout the
Yeah.
world. But I think that we have to have a mentality as a responsible professionals, human beings, society, to lessen global warming and to lessen greenhouse, gases, and make the world a better place for future generations.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally understand, and it's, I mean, you're not clearing rainforest or anything like that. I mean, this is. So, do you pull from sustainable farming, fresh grown trees, or is it mostly just from mills and the scraps taken from the timber mills and lumber mills and that type of stuff?
Yeah, it's mostly the scraps that you're taking, and it's, again, I want to talk a little bit about the mills themselves and how, there's so many third party certifications. Sustainable Forestry Initiative, sustainable biomass program that ties into tracking where even sawmills get their lumber or their wood from, right? So
Yeah,
they have to show that they're timbering, places that are going to be replanted or properly managed from a sustainability standpoint. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it that the common person doesn't even understand. And when you track that back to, oh, this plot of land was harvested in 2024, it can't be reharvested until 2030, or it can't even have thinnings taken from it until 2030. There's that level of detail that goes
right,
into forestry. And it's truly incredible because the general public doesn't see that, right?
right.
They don't see or understand the level of science of tracking what's used, latitude, longitude of exactly where those trees came from, right? And then, for when you make a pellet and when you sell it over to Europe or Asia, they're huge on third party certification. So, for example, we started up my plant in Dothan, Alabama, Peak Renewables, right?
Yeah,
We had to obtain Sustainable Biomass Program, SBP certification, to show that we were using residuals from sustainably managed forests, that where we were getting them from our suppliers, all had
right.
their certifications. So much that goes into it.
There's a lot that goes into it, and then the question is then when you look at the operations of everything, and you have to consider extraction or getting the raw material, in this case used woods or sustainably managed forests, or the offtake or the exhaust, if you will, from timber mills or lumber mills, etc. From there all the way through the the end of life of the product, and hopefully you can keep doing circularity. Um, but at the end of life, if you take in all the processes inside there, that's the carbon footprint of a product or a source. It's not just the combustion part. That's not the whole carbon footprint of it, right? Because it's got to be
100%.
moved there. It's got to be mined out of the ground. It's got to do this. And what are the impacts of pulling it out of the ground? And what are the impacts of not burning it? What are the impact? All these type of stuff and things. And what are the technologies that are used in the different types of fuels? And when you burn them, do you put them in a cement kiln? Do you put them in an open pit and just burn them for heat because it's a cool, fall night in the Appalachian Mountains, which sounds
Yeah.
pretty good right now, doesn't it?
Yep.
What do
Absolutely.
you say we move the next recording to Asheville and we'll do it around a fire and drink a couple beers and some whiskey?
There we go. Now we're talking, man.
But when you take all that into account, the renewable wood actually works as a less carbon intensive than coal or other fossil fuels for energy, right? And it may not be perfect, but show me what is yet. I mean, unless you guys are got a cold fusion reactor somewhere in that Dothan, Alabama plant, then um, you know I don't know where that other energy source is. I mean, it's you got to have supplemental runs, right? You have to variety of different paths towards the ultimate green, which someday we'll get there, but we can't destroy our society in the process, right?
And Michael, that's it. I think, for so many folks, it's black and white. Like it's, oh, okay, this is wrong, and there's no in between. But I think, specifically when I look at it, I haven't been in the industry, for what, almost 4 years now, and seeing the progression, how quickly in those past 4 years things are progressing. Um, it nobody's saying that wood pellets is the golden bullet, silver
No.
bullet.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
but it can play a part. I mean, you look at palm kernel seeds that's currently being used in Japan and places like that, and to generate heat. You look, I mean, there's companies
Really,
doing
palm kernel seeds. I've
flat
not heard
straw
of that.
pellets. I mean, there's so much going on from a agricultural waste standpoint, right?
Yeah.
That is also helping to say, okay, we can use this waste, just like tree waste, and make a pellet out of it, and you can burn it. And you can actually generate enough heat value from it to make a difference and to cut down on your coal use. And I think
Yeah.
it's those creative ideas like that it's gonna take everyone, ideas on different ways of generating heat, not just by using coal, and generating electricity, not just by using coal or whatever, to come together and reduce the carbon footprint. That's the only way we're going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes steps to get there, and many times that's better than jumping that creek, right?
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
you're from North Carolina. You've jumped creeks and got to the other side, and as soon as you land, go whoops, because you slip and fall right back into the creek, right? Maybe you should have taken your time a little bit to get across that one.
Or you just jump the creek and you land in the water.
You land right in the middle of it. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. I mean, we've all done it, and we've all been successful, and but yeah, you know what I'm saying. And sometimes, jumping to that from here to there is not the best thing. The steps, because you wind up on slippery slopes that you really didn't intend to be on sometimes. And taking the smaller and several different paths, and backstepping, etc., can prevent bad things from happening if you take your time doing that stuff and feeling your way through it. I had a guy, I 36 years in trucking. We talked about this before. You said, "Hey, excuse me if I use any foul language," and I have a feeling you probably have a family that'll slap you if you use too much profanity on air. I mean,
Exactly.
just from your accent and where you grew up, I have this feeling that I have a notion of a phone call you might get if you if
That's
you
right.
use the wrong language. But I had a driver, and he was a he was a casual driver, right? He was in a union. I worked for a union carrier, and he was a great driver. But he had a farm, right? So I could only use him in the afternoons because he was doing his farming stuff, and he didn't want to be full time. He wanted to be casual or part time because he had his farm he was taking care of. But what he was doing was he had been letting a timber mills around central Pennsylvania just unload their sawdust and their scrap in part of his farm in these fields, right? And
That's
they'd
right.
pay him like $50 a load to dump it, right?
That's right.
And one day the EPA shows up and he's got a few acres, 4 or 5 feet high.
Oh,
And they said, this is a hazard, dude, because it starts to warm up underneath it. It's, I mean,
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like if
yeah,
you see people take a mulch pile, from
yeah.
your local lawn and garden. As soon as they pull into it, man, its steam comes up. It gets hot inside there. That biomass can ignite itself, right?
That's right. You got to
That's
turn the
right.
piles. Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to turn the piles. My
That's
friend wasn't turning the piles, so he was looking at a big old find because he had like a lot of this stuff. So he does a few researches. He researches it for a little bit, and then he figures out that he can sell this stuff to a wood pellet manufacturer.
there you go. Yeah.
So at the ripe old age of like 33, he retires from trucking and says, I'm a millionaire because I got these guys paying me $50 a load and these guys paying me $200 a load. It's just going in and out of his farm, and that's it.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
it's amazing, and that in and of itself, again, that's what America was kind of built off of, that industrious attitude. Well, yeah, I can make money doing this. And but the other key point, and you'll appreciate this, you were in trucking a long time, logistics a
Yeah.
long time, right? You've got to be I mean, that's your one of your main costs in the pellet business. You've got to be associated
Freight.
close to, right, where your
Yeah.
fiber's coming from.
That's right. Freight is the F word in many
That's right.
business. I mean, you
That's
were in plastics, dude. Freight is the F word in recycled plastics for certain,
for
because you
sure.
got super light, low value commodity. You don't want to be trucking that hundreds of miles. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. A
Trust
couple.
me, I remember the profit margins off that. They weren't good.
No, no, they're not good at all. I mean, fractions of pennies at times when you start moving it in different angles and that type of stuff. That's crazy. So you guys been around what, 4 years? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so the company got off the ground back in 2020, and the founder is Brian Fair. So Brian, just a little history on Brian. He was actually the owner and started the Bid Group, and Bid Group being I don't know if it still is or not, but was one of the largest sawmill builders in North America. So starting in Canada, Brian's from Canada,
Okay.
and the BC region, and he helped build the Big Group to a $1 billion plus industry, right? Just building sawmills in Canada for Tolko, West Fret, all the big boys, and
Yeah.
then he saw that start transitioning to the South, and then came into the U.S., started doing the same thing. And I believe the number I saw was 7 or 8 years ago. He sold the Big Group, made his money, and then started putting together the Brian Fair Group, BFG, right? BFG Holdings, and
Okay.
that holdings group incorporates, it's kind of an umbrella for Peak Renewables, which is the business I oversee, right? Which
Hmm.
is biomass, and but also wood products. So we're interested in building OSB mills, which again take residuals and things like that.
What? Wait. What kind of mill is that? What's it called?
Oriented strand board, OSB.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
like press board for like plywood,
yeah,
that type of stuff.
exactly,
I got you.
exactly.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah, and so you have a Peak Renewables business, then you have what they call Peak North America, which is the construction business, which is building sawmills, building pellet mills, building OSB mills. So it's a really neat how Brian is put together because he's vertically integrated, right? He's
So,
got
wow, that's
yeah,
interesting. So he's making the products, but he's also making and building the mills for other people to make the products as
that's
well.
right.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're gonna make some money doing that, right?
Yes, you're always going to have a competitor. So why not make money off of them too?
That's right. That's
I mean,
right.
that's the tagline of the company, right? I mean, it's right.
Yeah. I mean,
Just kidding.
and then the other cool thing, that the other umbrella is he's part owner, or part investor. I shouldn't say owner, part investor in this company called H2 Naturally, based
Oh,
out of Calgary. So H2 Naturally is partnered with a gentleman by the name of Ian McGregor, who's the other majority investor. And the vision for that business is, in Alberta region, is to do a green hydrogen carbon sequestration plant in that area. And originally, we were going to supply pellets to feed that to feed that plant up in Canada. And what's cool about that is you're producing, okay, so you're making money making pellets. Then you're also making money producing green hydrogen for, whatever SAF or biodiesel or whatever.
well, yeah, green hydrogen can be used for so much. I mean, that's a huge.
Huge. Yeah.
So, I mean, so there's a master plan behind all of this, right? It's not just, hey, they don't want to use coal, so let's just burn wood. And
Yeah.
here it is. I mean, there's a growth cycle here, and I see the steps being taken. That's amazing. So, is that plant going up, the H2 plant?
Yeah. So we're continuously revamping the business plan on that. And
Right.
we've
But
got
it's
some
it's
good.
taking the carbon. Is it taking the carbon, sequestering the carbon, and then using that to create the H2? Right.
Well, you're actually stripping the hydrogen out of your
Yeah.
carbon stream, and you're
Right.
sequestering the residual carbon and storing it under the shelf in Calgary, so
Yeah.
it'll never come back out. And then you pump off your hydrogen and make money off of it.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. So that's what do they call that? Carbon storage or whatever.
CCS, carbon capture and
CCS.
storage. Yeah.
Carbon cabbage. Yeah. Carbon cabbage. CCS. And so it's starting that up in Alberta. That is tremendous stuff. How? So that just takes the carbon out of the air, right? Is that what it is? It's a like a it's sucking it out of the air kind of thing, or
Well,
is it off of the scrubbers in your stacks or something, or what?
yeah, so you're burning wood pellets or wood residuals.
Yeah.
You're gasifying it, right? So
Right.
instead of releasing that carbon stream to the atmosphere, you're sequestering it under the Earth's surface.
Okay. See, now this is a great, compelling story, right? Because you look at different things, and even in the EV, and you and I talked about this briefly before we started recording, was talking about internal combustion engines versus electric vehicles, etc. No matter what your opinion is on electric vehicles, mine isn't really high at this particular moment in time, and I don't think many people's are. Given, I mean, look at Tesla down 50% in their profitability and stuff like that. Nobody's buying these things because I
Right.
mean we're jumping the gun a little bit on those. But regardless, that's not the argument. It is the mining process and stripping the earth and these huge scars and all of the carbon emissions, et cetera, and energy used to extract coal, right, is now gone because you're using residual or, again, exhaust or waste wood biomass from a process that's already being done. So you're taking that waste and you're repurposing that waste. And then you're taking the carbon offset from, or the carbon from burning that fuel as a fuel and creating, well, you're doing CCS, your carbon capture storage, but
That's
you're
right.
also producing a greener fuel, a truly green fuel to then power. And it's really interesting because there is a pulp board. Uh, they don't just make pulp board, but they make end cap displays. It's a marketing production company, but they actually do the pulp. They make the pulp and do everything all the way. They don't just buy, you know, corrugated board and then print on it. They
Mhm.
they do it all themselves, and they utilize old or waste cardboard, etc. Right, to
Yep.
make this stuff. And in their process, they use the steam to actually power their own mills. Is that kind of the idea that, I mean, you could power your own pellet mill with the H2?
Absolutely. You could co-generate. I mean, cogen is a common term that you could
Sure.
take a spin off that and power your own mill. You can sell it back to the grid for power. You can, I mean, there's just so many avenues, Michael.
Yeah. That is a really compelling story. That is really cool. So you've taken us down the line. What else is going on with you? What else are you gonna do? You gonna go barbecue this weekend with some pellet grills? I
Well, I
mean,
mean, I think, it's funny. Let's get back to the world, well, logistics. And,
yeah,
every that has been the one piece that has kind of, I believe in the vision and I believe in the future of sustainability with woody biomass. But,
right.
I've always kind of question putting it on a barge, shipping it over to Europe or shipping it, to Asia or wherever. And I mean, I would like to take Peak Renewables, right, as CEO. And Brian and I have discussed this is, you know, and this was clear in the IRA, right? The Inflation Reduction Act, where coal-fired power plants here in the U.S. need to be either co-fired or switched from coal or shut down. Which I don't want that to happen. But there's a world where I want to see peak renewables supplying domestically, right? And it's so funny. I was on a call earlier this week, not yesterday, with a company who's looking at blue hydrogen and carbon capture and storage in the deep south. And
Hmm.
what does that look like, and how do they get their fiber source in? And there, I do see a world. Like, is it next year? Is it this year? Who knows? I see it in the next 3 to 5 years, to be honest. But where
Hmm.
we can supply pellets domestically for power production, for some of these cool green hydrogen and CCS projects that are kicking off. And that's where I want to take our business. I don't want to ship all of our pellets overseas. I want to use them domestically, where we can continue to reduce our carbon footprint because of not logistics, right? And do what we can here in the U.S. and in Canada, and really start taking a hunk out of the carbon in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, that's a great vision. I love it, and I applaud that. I hope you guys are successful doing it, and anything I can do to help, I would love to, evangelize it, whatever you see fit. But uh, do you do you have a theory, or what are your thoughts on why the demand is international and not domestic for this type of power production? Is there
Michael,
are
I
we
just think
just
it.
that behind? I mean, because I'm in plastic recycling, right? I mean, that's one of the big things that I do is plastic recycling, and the best technologies in it come from other countries, and they don't come from the countries that you would think that they come from. They come from the garbage dumps of the world, and I don't mean that because the countries are terrible. It's just they've traditionally been where we send everything, right?
Well,
And
that's what blows me away, man. It's we, in my opinion, we still live in the greatest country in the world.
sure,
And I firmly believe that we've got great opportunities here in America. But it's so funny. It's like you say, that so much we get from other countries, whether it's manufacturing or whatever. But also you look at it and it's like, well, shit, Europe and Asia have been on woody biomass 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
yeah,
And we're just now catching up to the curve here in the US. And
yeah,
that's genuinely the answer to your question. They started down this trek a long time ago, and are ahead of us by like 10 to 15 years. And now the US is like, oh shit, we need to be thinking, like, what can we add from a bioenergy standpoint?
Is it because we have so much? There's we're so big, land mass wise, and population wise, but land mass wise in particular, that it's like out of sight, out of mind. I mean, it's not that we look the other way intentionally. It's just very easy for the U.S. population to not see what's going on because we're not on top of each other. I mean, as well between me, where you are and I am, we'd cross most of Europe.
That's a great
and we're
point.
and we're
Yeah,
both and
exactly.
we're both on and we're both on the East Coast.
That's right.
And I mean, is that part of it? I have to believe that that's got to be part of it, right? I mean, they import like 90% of their energy source.
Yeah.
Europe,
Yep. I think there is a component of that. I mean, land mass is definitely one component. I think, you know, like you were just saying, they always seem. I know when I say they, Europe in general as a whole seems to kind of like always be uh, forward thinking a little bit on from an environmental standpoint
yeah,
and things like that. So that's kind of the way I see it. And I think that the U.S. is has got to catch up. Okay, there's
yeah,
no if and ands, or it's when will we catch up.
yeah, yeah,
And so that's why I say, and that's why I'm, touting, I'm advertising kind of my business. I think there is a vision and a way that pellets can be supplied domestically for, power generation and to help other businesses, reduce our carbon footprint.
yeah. Well, hey, I hope you guys are incredibly successful, Corey. You want to leave everybody with final thoughts of wisdom from Corey Woolard?
Well, I don't know if I have much wisdom, but I'll just say, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Michael. Thank you for giving me and Pete Renewables this opportunity. Say that with a lot of sincerity. Just definitely advertise our website. Follow me on LinkedIn,
What
Corey
is the
Woolard,
website? Is it peakrenewables.com?
PeteRenewables.ca. Yep.
.ca. I got you.
And
Got you. Got you. Got you.
and yeah, and continue to follow us because we'll be up and coming.
Fantastic stuff, man. I appreciate it, Corey. Thanks for coming on, man.
Awesome. It's been great talking with you, Michael. Take care, buddy.
Right on. Peace.
See ya.